Hey, it's Grayson. Um, I've been going through a couple crazy days, and I'm starting to come to a realization that I actually have pretty much come to this realization for some time, but it's starting to actually hit me that I am generally the dumbest person in the room when I'm doing just about anything. I've realized this in my places of employment. That's why I can't hold down a job. Realizing this in my own personal life. That's why whenever I make comments or suggestions or anything like that, I'm almost universally just shut up because nobody wants to listen to me. Um, and there's part of me. It's a very weird place when you think of things in a way that is so counterintuitive that nobody really understands it, but you know somehow deep inside that you're actually right. It's a very, very weird place because you think you're doing the exact right thing, but everybody else in the world is telling you you're doing the wrong thing. And it's one of those cases where you feel like if only you had a way of explaining the way you think to somebody else, then everything would be better. I'm kind of thinking through the ways that people that have this kind of weird alternative thinking go about their lives, and there's a reason why they kind of isolate themselves and go into sort of creating things on their own in a positive manner. This is what they call the DIY ethos that you see in things like punk rock culture, where basically they're like, okay, the system's not going to do anything for us, the people around us aren't going to do anything for us, so we're just going to do stuff ourselves. And that's a very positive response, but it's difficult to actually get to that positive response, and that's why I applaud that. I think part of it has to do with the way your mind processes threat. If it just shuts down, then you have a problem, which that's me. My brain just shuts down. But if you actually have a creative response to it, then it's better, which is the place that I thought I'd be more fully after going through very intensive and very expensive treatment. But I'm kind of winded, so it's a little difficult for me to carry on this. But suffice to say that the dilemma for me now is I know that I don't think the way that everybody else wants me to think. But the question is, and this is more of a normative question rather than a positive question, is it a good idea for me, and this is something I'm thinking about because I have to go into more treatment for my mental health issue, is it a good idea for me to conform my thinking to those around me? Is it a good thing for society? Is it a good thing in the larger, more ontological scheme of things for me to do that? Or is that really more of the easy way out that my mind is actually resisting? Of course, the bias anytime you go into therapeutic treatment of any sort is to change the image of the person coming in into the image of the greater society as a whole. But is that really the best thing for the greater society as a whole? Should we be retraining people to think in a very specific way rather than getting them to the point where they're able to actually utilize their own vision for the world in a way that is positive for them? It's a tricky question. And it's a tricky question that I almost feel like I trust myself more with than I trust a therapist with. And that's the dilemma that I find myself in. I know nobody is listening to me, but is the solution actually to get people to listen to me, or is it to figure out some way that my mind can reprocess my own ideas so that I can utilize them in some form that doesn't require other people listening to me, or that allows some sort of self-sorting mechanism? I remember back actually about a year and like 4 months ago, probably like a year and a half ago, I was at a conference at USC, and I asked a question of the skateboarding legend Rodney Mullen, um, about how about how skateboarding culture can explain itself to the greater world and show its value. And basically, the way Rodney Mullen answered the question, and part of it I wish it was on tape because some of it I just didn't quite understand at the time. But he was basically saying that that it isn't really the point to get the rest of the surrounding culture and society to accept you, but rather simply um, to simply work within your own context to create something. That isn't really a question he'd want to answer, because it's not a matter of the greater whole of society accepting you. And of course, this is basically, it's a perfect response to repression. That's what it is. It's just a response to repression. The DIY ethos is a positive response to repression. But sometimes you are at a point where you cannot even fully implement that. But then the methods you try to use to rectify your inability to fully implement your own ethos are going to cause you to actually lose the ideas that you started with. So you wind up no longer having the premise for which you seek to improve yourself, because the self-improvement process will not allow that to happen. I apologize if this is really confusing, but you go into trying to improve yourself for one reason, but you realize that that reason is going to be eviscerated by the process which you are in, causing a loss of your agency. And that particular part, the loss of your own personal agency, is a big, big, big deal when you're dealing with persons who express themselves in different ways, especially if they express themselves in ways that could be perceived as a mental illness. So hopefully over the years, and I think that we are getting better at this, as a society, we come to understand that the highest and best use of a person's capacity is not in forcing them into a specific model, but rather in having them be in a place where what they have can be used adequately. Forcing a round peg into a square hole using a welding machine or some other kind of analogous giant force is not the best use of a person, in my opinion. All right, so that video is probably very confusing and hard to follow, but if you like it, hit the like button. I will post a contest link here. This is video number 3 for the contest. Contest will be explained using the links in the description. So click those links if you want to enter the contest. Maybe win $25. All right, good luck.